Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. Welcome to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann, and you know how much I love to talk fear and anxiety. But today we don't talk about fear and anxiety. Well, maybe in a roundabout way. Today we're going to talk about another, we could say, equally or maybe even more potent emotion, which many say, well, they're only fear or there is love. Love is in the air in February anyhow. It's not so far away from Valentine's Day. And so the topic is about love. And I have invited again my very dear friend and guest and author, Gary Salyer, that he was here a year ago to really discuss what he found about love and working with couples for many years, writing a fabulous book about love and relationship, which is called Safe to Love Again, how to release the pain of past relationships and create the love you deserve. But because we had him on already, today I'm going to challenge him with all the difficult questions that have been coming up in my practice, having worked with many people that, especially right now, are really struggling with love. I mean, if there is a lot of stuff that doesn't go really well during COVID, whether it's our health, our finances, one of the things that really is very much suffering during the times that we are under lockdown or dealing with this enormous pressure, it's our love life. So we need help. And I'm so glad that the help is here. So Gary, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you, Friedemann. It's great being back. It does seem like a long year, doesn't it?
I know, it seems like we just talked about it. It's amazing how 2020 was a little bit like a blur. And well, we hopefully going to tie it nicely back together, and hopefully soon this whole COVID misery will also be out of our lives. But in the meantime, we need help because a lot of relationships were either falling apart or challenged. And a lot of people equally had a hard time finding a relationship.
Yeah.
But before we go to all of my difficult questions for you, I want to start with one. Is love in general enough to make a relationship work?
Is love enough? I don't believe it is. I mean, I've seen countless couples who deeply love each other. Sometimes there can be misalignment on core values, right? If one person wants a 5,000 square foot house in the burbs and the other one wants to live in the woods in a teepee, unless you've got a very big living room to put the teepee, you've got a problem, right? And sometimes it's, they love each other, but what I call their own attachment wounds are constantly battling, and without the skills or the rights for a better relationship, they tend to settle into these repeating patterns that, even though they love each other, they're terribly stressful. And then some part says, surely this can't be love. So while love is the one thing I look for when I work for couples, do they still love each other? They wouldn't have come to me if it was enough.
So what is a typical sign, or what are typical signs that couples need help? How would they know? I mean, besides the obvious, where there is abuse involved. But let's say, I think a lot of couples have been feeling right now, oh, we were totally fine before COVID because we barely saw each other, or we had our own circle of friends, beautiful distractions going on. Now we were stuck together. I have to look at you and see what you're actually doing and what you're about, and I don't really like it. And so what would you say are signs that you see people struggle with that make them come to you?
Well, it's last year I had 10 couples come to me during COVID, and it was all related to the amount of pressure that couples feel, because we're supposed to have go out and separate and do our own thing and, be able to pursue our dreams and our goals and our career and come back to the home port of somebody's heart, to a we. We go out, we come back. We go out and come back. Well, couples, when you have to shelter in place, they're always under each other's feet. They get no right to go out. They're constantly there. And the pattern that I saw in all these couples was, and 5 of them had 30-year marriages,
Hmm.
30-year marriages, but they had been using distractions, the children, the careers, and even they knew they had their issues. But, if I go to the gym and I cut down my time at night, we can bear it. But when you're underfoot 24/7, suddenly you're seeing those residual issues and distractions don't work anymore. And now it feels the weight of 10, 20, 30 years of dealing with that comes crashing down on that couple. And they feel like, oh my God, this will never change.
And do they more often fight or more often feel like we're not really connected at all? We don't even talk? Or what patterns do you see that makes couples? I mean, for every couple out there listening, just to have some kind of an indication, yep, your relationship is a little bit in trouble, you should need help. So what would be such an indication?
Well, I would say there's 3 of them. One of them is when you're battling and sniping and snipping over little things and big things. But it used to be big things, and now you're just nibbling at each other all the time in snarky ways, and it's coming out sideways, and it's like a never-ending stream of snarkiness, right?
Mhm.
And the other one is when suddenly you realize there are enormous feelings that have been backlogged for so long. And when you try to finally talk about it, you finally, okay, we really have had this issue for 25 years. You can't talk. One won't listen. It gets to be so touchy because both people are so raw after 25 years that the slightest mention of the issue that they've been distracting creates enormous big blowups. And you can't talk about it. You can't even, broach the subject. And your feelings feel hurt, and neither person feels their feelings can be heard because they're so, backlogged on both. It's just
Mhm.
higher than, the wattage is higher than needs to be, so to speak, right? And both people feel electrocuted if they go near the the third wire of that area,
Right.
right? And then the fourth one is when they just retreat into his office, her office, and there's the distance. And so if they couldn't use distraction, now the distance seems like a frozen tundra in the middle of the living room. Those are the 3 things. Um, and then sometimes
And
it's just a
and they
realization that
can
all
all happen at the same time, right? This is not like one exclusive for the other. Now, would you say that you mentioned the we,
yes.
that one of the things that all of these 3 signs have in common is that the we is kind of malnourished or pretty much not existent anymore? And what
Yeah.
is a we anyhow?
Well, the we is, I write in my book, the core of any relationship, is the we. When I work with couples, yes, I've got 2 clients, right? But my real client is between their heads. It's the we that's between them. And I've said multiple times before, you show me a couple without a we, and I'll show you a war, right? Or distance. Without that we, people feel lonely. They don't feel they have the backup they need. And we all need belonging. Without a
Hmm.
we, it's just 2 me's doing their separate things, going their separate ways. And at some point in time, it doesn't feel like the intimacy that we all want. So the we is that space of shared energy where both people are committed to something that's bigger than their own agendas, bigger than their own needs. And there's this mutual sharing and commitment and prioritization that our relationship is more important than all the other things. Sometimes I have to tell a couple, it's often a man that I have to say, you can be right or you can be in a relationship. He's
Hmm.
valuing being right over the relationship. But it's where there is a shared commitment that actually protects each other's interests better than if they were defending them by themselves.
Hmm. So what is a healthy we? How do you know that you have a healthy, well taken care of we?
Okay. Well, I always start off with, in my book, I talk about these four feelings. Every we
Hmm.
deserve, you've got to be able to welcome each other with joy. When you wake up in the morning, you say, "Good morning, gorgeous. Good morning, handsome." You welcome them in back in their life. Everybody's got to feel worthy to reach out for their needs. It's okay to ask for that thing, knowing you're going to get an attuned response back. Cherished and protected is the core of the we, where you see an essence in that other person that you can't find elsewhere. Sure, there may be somebody else 6'2" or somebody else that's this or that, right? But there's something about them, and you cherish and you protect that. And then everybody needs to feel empowered, right? That they have a voice, that they can create their own experience and something that's joint together. From those four feelings, I think the core of the we is there's multiple things that create a we, but one of them is shared influence. Do they share influence? Are they co-creating this thing together? Not one driving the bus, not the other, but it's a co-creation. And I think the we is also dependent on you're keeping track of each other's dreams. Sometimes it's purpose work. And when you
Hmm.
have that beautiful place where you feel safe and comfortable and someone values your essence. If they value your essence, you're going to want to go out and make sure that their dreams happen. You're supporting them. So you're sharing influence, you're co-creating, you're tracking each other's needs. And most of all, it's a place where you can come home uh, and not only share your dreams, but when your dreams get dashed, there's a home port where someone truly says, "Come here," against the storms of life. If you've got those things going, you have a pretty good week.
Now, there is so much to say about that because this sounds like a dream for many. Say, oh, wow, where is that prince or princess who is able to create a we for me? Because a lot of people feel alone in their relationships and they
Yes.
feel disconnected. And what I find uh, a hallmark is the lack of trust, and that they don't trust each other with their heart, with their vulnerabilities, with their opinions. So, what would you say is a very simple way for people to start rebuilding trust in each other again?
Well, trust, there's research. Trust is, there's a metric for it. If you're in a relationship you trust, you know that they are not going to sell your needs short for their own. They're not going to sacrifice your needs for their needs. They're not going to seek their win at your loss. And what establishes trust is when two people value each other so much they don't seek their own interest at the other's loss. So, and that's a track record. Trust is a track record. You've got to sit down and say, what's the most important thing that I need valued and protected? And with the other person. And then you have to make conscious steps to make sure that the most important goal, life, need, whatever it is, that you are making sure your needs don't step on there.
But
That's
what if your needs, well, you say, well, on a scale from 1 to 10, my needs are a 10. And
yes.
the other one says, well, my needs are a 10 too. So then you're an impasse. How do you resolve that?
Well, there's a lot of things on that question, but I would, you have to be able. When most people can't create a we, what they really do, they walked into that relationship usually thinking, if I have my own back, that's the best deal. Somewhere in
Mhm.
childhood, they learned that, you don't trust the we, don't depend on others. And so the basis of all that betrayal they're feeling in the relationship is they learned a long time ago, I got to have my own back and no one's going to have it. I call that more right to separate them belong. And so if you don't get to that primal fear of belonging, of depending on another person, because before it wasn't there, then neither of them. That feeling of distance is safe. You've or not trusting another. You've got to be able to deal with that primal feeling that says, a we doesn't feel so safe. A me feels a lot better. Before you get, if you don't get to that feeling, you can give them all the skills you want, but they won't take the skills and do it because they don't trust in general.
This is what I really like about your work. And I certainly feel like this is something that also should be really done by more couples therapists, which is you work also with the individual separately, because exactly for that reason, because you see that at the core of the lack of the connection or the lack of trust or the lack of we is a wound that has nothing to do with the relationship. It's much earlier, and it's something that's deprogramming. And unless this gets deprogrammed, we are just stuck in this impasse. So we're going to talk more about after the break. But yeah, let's stay tuned and just work on making our love life work again. Be right back. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.